Welcome to Villains, Why We Love to Hate Them. I am here with all of that's it's so funny. I trip up every time I use the word hate because I was raised not to say that word, and then I'm like, oh. But anyway, I'm here with all these fabulous authors, and we are going to be chatting all about villains, why we love to hate them, or why we hate to love them. And I am very excited. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go through. I'll introduce myself and then have each of you take a moment to introduce yourselves. So I am M.H. Woodscourt. I am an epic fantasy author leaning into Noble Bright, and I am the moderator for this panel. So we'll go ahead and Alisha, if you want to introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Alisha Klapheke, the one with the crazy last name no one can say, so you don't have to say it. I write fantasy romance, epic fantasy, and cozy romantasy. I write my spicy cozy romantasy under a pen name Lila Appleton, so I'm also seen as her openly in different places as well. What else was I supposed to say? I forgot. Anything else?
Whatever.
Okay, well, that'll be good. I'll close out.
All right. All right. And then Rebecca, if you want to go next.
All right, I'm Rebecca R.M. Krogman. I do dark and epic fantasy. So far, all of my published books are set in the same world of Midgate, which is a fairly traditional kind of pseudo-medieval, big, vast world. And so all of it is either epic stories, part of the same trilogy, or just standalone, dark, kind of tragic types of shorter stories.
Perfect. And Kirsten, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, I'm Kirsten K.R. Solberg. I write Flintlock epic fantasy. So if you think of like right before the Revolution, the French Revolution popped off, except all the Marie Antoinettes of the world are immortal and insane. That's kind of the vibes of that. I have a lot of villains. I write with my mom, and our joke is that if it were me, I would never finish, and if it were her, she would never start, and together we're one functioning author.
I love that. All right, and then Dan?
I'm Dan Zangari. I write epic fantasy with my son Robert. We co-author a fantasy series called Tales of the Amulet. And we've been writing since about 2011 together. So
wonderful. Thank you again, all of you, for being here. Let's just jump right into it. So we're going to start with a kind of a fun icebreaker question. It might actually be the trickiest question of the bunch. So after this, it gets way easier. So do you have a favorite villain from a movie, a book, comic series, whatever, just sort of a pop culture villain that is just like your all-time favorite, and why? And we'll just go ahead and go through, so just kind of down the line. So if you want to start, Alisha.
Okay. I mean, this isn't very niche, but I'm just going to say Loki in all of his forms, because I used to, I mean, it's not like I'm not now, but I had a big Norse mythology phase, you know? So I like the older stuff, but also the fun, new kind of campy version of Loki. I think I like him because I love the trickster archetype. I really like how unpredictable they are, and the element of fun, even in their evil, which is pretty messed up, really. But I just think they're entertaining, and there's usually some kind of humor, even if it's dark humor, involved in his character. I like the playful evil side. That sounds so bad, but we're here to talk about villains, so it's okay, right?
There is no judgment on this panel. I can't speak for the comment section, but on this panel, there is no judgment. Perfect. I love that. Dan, do you have a favorite pop culture villain?
Oh, come back to me. I'm still trying.
Okay, no problem. Rebecca?
I understand the struggle, Dan. Okay, I swear I'm only going to say one. But Melissa knows I was struggling with this question because it really depends on what makes the best villain, right? Like, some are amazing because they're totally terrifying and just like touch you at your base core of needing survival. And then some are the best because they're like Loki, like they're just fascinating and they have depth and they have some humor wrapped into them. And so I struggled with really picking one, but I guess one that really stuck with me over the years is Commodus from Gladiator, because I just found him to be so despicable through and through that it made me hate Joaquin Phoenix for like 20 years. And I just could not get over seeing him in other movies because all I could see was Commodus. And he's amazing. So like I finally got over it. But that's just how much my whole body just hated him.
That visceral response is so real. It's so real. It's amazing how hard it can be to separate that actor from the character sometimes. Kirsten, what's your answer?
Yeah, my favorite book series of all time is The Witcher. And I kind of don't want to say the name, and I think I might have it wrong even in my head, but there's one particular one that Ciri, he becomes like her personal villain throughout like several books. And she finally gets her gotcha moment. So I don't want to give it away, but it was so like there's so many good villains in that series, but he was like so personal for her on so many levels. So that just the emotional buildup of that like that relationship and that like the animosity there was so good.
That's fantastic. Dan, do you have an answer for us?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to go all the way back to um, Tolkien, Morgoth, Melkor.
Uh-huh.
He was like, I think he was Tolkien's Satan. He wanted to rule things. He wanted to, basically be in charge of stuff and do it his way, but he was really bad. Um, and he was another one of those that was terrifying, just with his power and his ability to do things and creating the from elves. He was just evil. So
Yeah. Yeah, that quintessential Dark Lord type archetype is yeah. I'm gonna let you know that I wrestled with this question as well. So I put myself into this problem and I was just like, who am I gonna pick? And I think my favorite archetype is the redeemable villain. And I think one of my favorites in pop culture for that is Darth Vader. I love the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader sort of contrast and foil and yet mirroring. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But so Darth Vader, I know it's like the cop-out answer, but there's a reason why it's like classic. So Darth Vader is the GOAT. All right, so let's jump into the next question. So we're going to talk a little bit more about archetypes. Do you have a favorite villain archetype and why? Like, and by that, I'm just going to throw out a couple of examples just so that people kind of know what I'm talking about here. There's the morally gray, there's the Dark Lord archetype, there's the trickster that we kind of talked about before, the fallen hero, etc. Do any of you have a favorite? And honestly, I'm just going to leave this one open to anybody who wants to answer it. So don't all
I'll give
jump
it
in
a
at
shot.
once. All right.
So funny enough, like my answers for what's my favorite all-time villain totally does not line up with my favorite archetype because overall, what I find most of my favorite stories to be is dealing with societal pressures or political pressures or just the broader characteristics of man and how he deals with problems to be like part of my favorite stories. Or just the selfishness of society usually is the greater evil in a lot of my favorite stories. So even though I didn't mention them earlier, they're all like the same thing. It's like Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind or Avatar or when you really get into people and how they react like in a survival situation and how selfish they can be, Lord of the Flies and The Stand and Battle Royale. Those are all like my favorite stories. And there's just kind of a common thread there where there's not really like one single supervillain, but it's everything, society as a whole.
Yeah, that I love that. That's great. 'Cause that's a timeless timeless villain archetype there. Anyone else have any thoughts about their favorite archetypes?
I oh somebody's got their thing off. I love morally gray or like a fallen hero, but I like when they have enough complexity that that's a dominant trait, but like not the only one. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
Just like a hero, I don't like a protagonist. I don't want them to be like so neatly fit into that one box. But they definitely have like a dominant thread there.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. That multifaceted like complexity I think is pretty vital for like even I know like Dark Lords get kind of a bad rap, but honestly, if you add some complexity to them, even that archetype can be more than its cliche. Anyone else want to answer that one, or we can move on?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
All right.
So mine is more like the the villain who's misunderstood.
Mm.
Um, he's thinking that he's doing the right thing for his moralistic look at life, but it isn't. That's kind of how we set up one of our villains in our storyline. But he's thinking he's doing a good thing for society, but he really isn't. And it causes a lot of problems and a lot of grief for everybody. So I don't
That's
know if
my second favorite too. I'm pointing at him like we all have the same order, like I'm on the Brady Bunch. Sorry. But no, I totally agree. Like that is, I mean, right there with Trickster for me, the fact that like they are so set on, no, this is good. This is what needs to happen, and I'm helping everybody. This is going to be great. Just you stick with me, you know. And then it's like, no, dude, no, dudette, that is not that is not it. So I love that one too. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and you said that was your second favorite. Do you have a favorite then that like
Yeah,
or
oh,
you're
I mentioned
referring
the
to the
trickster. Yeah,
right?
so the trickster god is the trickster villain is my favorite kind of thing, just for the unpredictability and the
Mhm.
humor, the weird humor.
Right. Yep. All right. So I this next question is kind of a broad one. What makes readers love to hate or hate to love villains? And what are your personal thoughts? Like, what do you think drives readers? Because we know like that readers love villains or love to hate them. Like we all respond very viscerally to the villain. So what do you think makes it so that we are so drawn or repulsed by that villain that it just draws us into the story a little bit more? And this I'm going to
I
leave open
think
as well.
I think it coming back to the unpredictability. I mean, this
Mm.
isn't true for all villains, I think, but a lot of times when I'm really into a villain, like really like into the book and that element of it, it's because I don't know for sure what this person is going to do next. Like because they don't follow the moral code I have imprinted in me, you know, they've got their other set of what's important, of their own ethics. And so, you know, what you would think a character would do, even with this kind of background, it might be totally different because they're just operating under a completely different system. So that's why I really find villains interesting to write and to read and to watch because of the unpredictability. They're just functioning so differently than everyone else.
Yeah. Yep. It kind of just adds, for one thing, it adds that multifaceting to the story, multifaceting nature to the story. Like it adds some dimension and depth. Like you realize that this is more of a fully fleshed out world as a result of not everybody thinks the same. And I think that's critical.
Right,
Any
right.
other
I mean, obviously it
thoughts?
has to make sense, like the
Yeah.
motivation wise, the wound and the ghost with this character and all of that, but it can still be very unpredictable. So, yeah, it's pretty fun. I think that's why people like it, or one reason.
Right.
Mm.
Any other thoughts?
I'm gonna go back to the emotional stakes. Um, Especially when there's things that the author's telling the reader that the protagonist may not necessarily know or understand, that you see things and you're like, oh boy. I think of like if anybody's read The Children of Hurin, the Tolkien story specifically about Turin and his, and all that. I don't want to spoil it, but Galrung, I think, is the name of the dragon. He doesn't have wings. He's a wingless dragon, but he is diabolical. And the emotional stakes and just the he like they don't quite understand that he's the guy, but they slowly realize it throughout the story, and it is such a hype as that story goes on. So those stakes, the emotional stakes between the villain and the heroes, I think I eat that right up.
Oh yeah. We want to, as readers, we want to be moved, and I think the villain really is like the catalyst for that. We're definitely going to feel something there. Anyone else on that? All right, let's go ahead and move on then. What do you feel is the number one issue that causes a villain to fall flat in a story? And how would you repair that issue? What is like, do you have a pet peeve? Oh, we lost Rebecca. Let's see if she comes back in.
Might come back.
So do you have like a pet peeve of something that you see in villain characters that you would really like to fix, and what might that be? Oh, we've got Rebecca back. David, if you could get her back in here. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's all good. So, just to recap, what do you think is do you have a pet peeve on why villains might fall flat? Something you see specifically that you would want to fix, and how would you fix it? Any
I mean, I
thoughts?
think that comes back to knowing their backstory, like as the writer, and making sure that they have a complete, like, I mean, depending on how old they are and what's going on in the world, but a complete backstory that their actions make sense, because then it feels rich, it feels complicated, it feels layered, like real people are. If you are just like, he's bad, she's bad, like obviously we've got to know specifically what is going on in their head that makes this either right to them or
Hmm.
necessary to them. Or, like, are they actually trying to just protect themselves? And like I just think that knowing their backstory and their motivation and what lies they believe about the world and themselves, I think that just keeps it from being flat.
Yeah,
That's a great
I
place
would
to
definitely
start.
agree.
Yeah, that's a great place to start for writers. But then we have to communicate that to the reader in a way that like is motivating for them to read. And sometimes that is, the backstory, and sometimes you don't know a dang thing about this guy. But if you can feel on the page that this person has convincing motivations, whatever, even if you don't know what they are, if you know that they're convinced about it and they mean business, and that there's buy-in from the rest of the cast and the world, like they believe that this person is a threat. I think the most flat, like the villains that fall the flattest to me are the ones where I'm like, bro, I could take you in a parking lot. Like, come on. um like I want as the reader to not want to live in the world that villain occupies. That to me is a good villain.
I love that. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Well,
I
yeah, I was,
just took a note that said mustache twirling.
I love it. I love it. What were you going to say, Dan?
yeah, I was going to say just if they're too superficial, that's a problem. Uh, yeah, they need to have some kind of depth to them. That's one of the things that Robert and I have tried to do is create the backstory for whoever it is we're writing about, but create a convincing backstory of why this person is why they are and why they think what they think. Um, that's to me, if I'm reading something and it seems superficial, um, it's hard to get into the story.
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
really cool when you can see them caring about something too, like like what could hurt them if you hurt
Mhm.
this person only. This one is the one they care about, or or their dog, or what,
Yeah,
like all that complicated. I mean, everything everyone said, like just make them real, make them more like a real person. And
yeah. Yeah, I find that when I am trying to figure out the motivations of a villain, I either know their backstory or I have to ask why. like the whole time I'm trying to figure out their motivation. If you're asking why, then the reader is asking why. Don't hurt dogs. John will come for you. Yes,
I know.
David.
Sorry, I was reading David Green's stuff down there.
Yes, I just
David, I'm
John Wick
so
will come
sorry for the
That's
book I'm
exactly
going to
what I was
show
thinking
later.
about.
Perfect. So let's jump into the next question. How villainous do you like your bad guys to be personally on a scale of 1 to 10? Like 10 being like hurt the dog, and 0 being he's just kind of a jerk.
Your nosy neighbor.
Yes.
I think
So-
it depends on your subgenre of
Yeah.
fantasy. So I've been writing cozy under Lila Appleton for a while. I'm still going to be writing stuff under my name too, which is higher stakes, more better villains, but in cozy, your villains, this isn't a true across the board, but generally speaking, your villains in cozy are not, as dark as you would have, obviously, in a regular book. I mean, they can be pretty rough, but they're usually off page. But but I'm finishing the 5th one right now, the 5th standalone in Leafshire Cove. And, the villain in this one is actually kind of a villain, like more of the typical sense, but a lot of the villains in Cozy are more like situationally difficult, not really like evil, but like it's a situation that other person is in that provides that conflict. But in my like more epic fantasy romance, like, you've got the people that are like, oh no, I'm taking over the entire kingdom. I will kill as many people as I need to. I'm here for my people, not yours, and I'm here to make war. So I think it depends on your subgenre a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with oh, sorry, Kirsten.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
I was thinking initially, like, I really like them being in epic fantasy, where we are talking kingdoms and worlds, that I want them to be like a 10, but without realizing it, back to our previous conversation. But then David had to throw the whole dogs thing in there and my scale changed. So I don't want 10 because that's the dog dying, but maybe like a 9 where, like a massive portion of the population might die, but at least it's not the dog. So 9, but without them recognizing internally that they are a 9, that what they're doing has these like massive ethical implications because, hey, that's justified in their brain, so I think that's about my level, 8 or 9.
I feel that. Anyone else?
I apparently feed on the tears of my readers and I have 10 out of 10. Like the dog is not safe. In fact, one of my favorite books about writing is this book right here. It's like the antithesis of Save the Cat. It's a really good book, by the way. It's by Paul Guyout, I think. Yeah. Anyway, but I wrote down my answers. This is an open book test for those of you who didn't know. Like I think of like in Harry Potter, Umbridge was maybe like a 7. But she was way more of like, I got more angry about her than like Voldemort every time she was on the page because it was so personal for Harry. And it was kind of relatable for us. Like, we don't go to magic schools, but like I was met teachers like that. And I wanted to punch him in the face. And, like I've never met a Voldemort in real life.
Mean teachers watched Kirsten in the parking lot. She's right.
Yeah. Listen. I went to college out of spite because my one of my teachers told me I wasn't college material, and I was like, bet.
Oh. Them's fighting words.
I like that you point out like the personal villains are so much more powerful, even if they're not the greatest villain in the whole story. They're a secondary, and yet they connect with you differently.
Yeah. Yep. Dan, do you have a thought on the scale? What's your preference?
Mine are probably 8 or 9. Yeah, I got a problem with kill the dog. Sorry. When I watched John Wick, it was like, yeah, go get them, John.
Yeah. Best motivation ever to take down an enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, so 8 or 9.
This is so sad. Maybe I shouldn't even bring it up, but I did have a neighbor once shoot my dog, and so I'm like, I need to hire John Wick.
You got
I know
Melissa has a lifelong enemy.
ooh, and then I had to deal with that man for about a year afterward on this personal level, and
Oof.
I learned restraint during that year.
Yeah. David wants to know who the neighbor is, their social security number, just the basic stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty devastating. So
Melissa's villain origin story.
This panel's taking a turn.
You thought this was about villains. It's actually a panel of villains.
Maybe this shouldn't be recorded.
I think we all like revenge stories.
Now, but we can find out.
Yeah.
This escalated so quickly.
Yeah. We're ready. To war.
In my book.
Comments is dying.
I love these comments.
Amazing.
Oh gosh, that's awesome.
For the sake of the recording afterward, everybody is coming to my defense to revenge my dog.
Allegedly.
No, the sad thing is I haven't had a dog since.
No.
Oh.
Now I'm gonna get like emotional over this. Oh my gosh. Okay, we are moving on. So I do interrupt our broadcast at this point to bring you the mystery phrase for our giveaway for this particular panel. The mystery phrase is enhancing the hero. So if you want to, you can scroll up through the comments. There is going to be a Google form you can fill out with that. I believe Melinda also dropped it in the comments if anybody saw that already. So, but if you didn't, again, it is enhancing the hero, and that is your entry for the giveaway for this panel. So moving into the next one, there is a quote that says basically a story is only as good as its villain. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit already organically, but let's like really kind of dive into this a little bit more. How are villains the engine of the story, basically? Like, it's only as good as its villain. What does that mean for you? And both as a writer and a reader, like, do you agree, disagree, how much, that kind of thing? What are your thoughts? And I'm leaving this open.
Well, I mean, the hero and the villain are supposed to be two sides of the same coin, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean, it's their story together. Really, it's almost like a weird romance, because, what they are both dealing with is going to be different versions of the same issue, right? Why am I suddenly like, I'm voguing or dancing? Anyway, I just feel like the villain needs to be almost like a mirror to the hero and pushing like the exact spots the hero doesn't want him to push, and then vice versa. Then, that's where the success happens, is when the hero, is able to push the buttons on the villain, for lack of a better way to say that. But they really have to be very, their arc has to be very intertwined, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I was thinking like the villain really is there, I mean, obviously to be part of the conflict of the story, but really to force the protagonist to grow in ways that they would otherwise not grow, which is really what makes the story compelling, is those character arcs.
Yeah.
You really don't have a story without the villain.
Yeah.
I mean, just the hero, it'd be pretty boring. So you need the villain to as was said, the two sides of the same coin. The villain is the antithesis of the hero, and they are what, I don't know. For me, when I read a story, that's what really makes it interesting for me, is what is the villain doing? What is the villain trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I would say, so I write in my books, the Palomar Saga, there's a lot of storylines going on. And in books I've read with multiple storylines that aren't always intersecting until like a certain part of the story, the ones that I'm like, like you turn the ones, you turn the page and it's like, oh, this chapter, oh, this person. Oh, okay, I'll just get through it. They don't have a meaningful adversarial relationship. Almost 100% of the time, that's what's going on. Like, they could maybe not be your favorite character, but you still want to know what's going on. A really good example of this done well is in the Bloodsworn saga. The character, I think his name is Gustav or something. He's a little bee, and you just want to squish his face the whole time. But he wants all the clout and none of the work. And he's always like, oh, this person, like it was so entertaining that like you hate him from the bottom of your heart. He is a villain, but he has so many adversarial like through lines with other people because he's just a little bug that you want to squish. And it was so interesting to be in his head because of the adversarial tension that he had in his narrative.
Yeah, I think it's a really valid point. I love how you bring up that the problem with sometimes a side character or some additional subplot is not enough of that adversarial conflict. I love that because I haven't really thought about that, but there are so many times when, as a reader, I'm just like, oh, we're back to this perspective. Move on. And like, I get that. The only time I'm ever tempted to skim, I can't skim. I have to read every word. That's how my brain works. But I wish I could skim sometimes. And usually, yeah, I think it is a lot to do with that. The villain really is the engine of the story. And if you don't have that engine, that story's not going to go anywhere. It's literally like stalled, like a car whose engine is gone. So it's amazing how much like being that foil for the hero, being the motivator, being the antithesis, it's essential. And I'm going to just throw this out there. Like maybe it's not an actual villain who's going to, hurt the dog. Maybe it's a socio-political situation or something like that. Or in cozy fantasy, they're like the stakes are a lot smaller, but there's still some sort of an antagonistic aspect of it. There's some sort of conflict there that has to be in order for that catharsis at the end. So
Yeah, and even Liz popped a comment here, like, what if the villain isn't a person? Have you guys read The Hatchet? Anybody read The Hatchet? Who's the villain?
The environment.
Nature. The environment. It's man versus nature. And it is and every single page is absolutely fascinating.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite books.
Yeah. If you haven't read it, it's a kid who survives a plane crash in like the wilderness of like Canada. And it's just him surviving for the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a compelling villain. Look at all the survival stories that are out there. And it's like, man,
in fact, people loved it so much that when he gets rescued at the end, people wrote him and were like, what if he didn't? And he wrote Brian's Winter, which is if he doesn't get rescued and survives for the whole winter.
Wow. That sounds intense. I don't think my anxiety could handle that.
My son's read it like 18 times in the last year and just like plays it all over our house on audiobook. And I'm like, dude, I can't. Like, I'm thinking about mosquitoes now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my daughter's favorite book. She has like a special edition up on her shelves. And yeah, Man versus Nature is very compelling because we all see at least a little bit of it, even if you're not like the outdoorsy type or haven't been through a big bad thing. You see this kind of stuff all the time. So it's also very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I ran into a moose last year while I was camping. That was the villain of my camping experience. He was literally like bumping up against the tent, snorting, stamping his hooves. And I'm just sitting in the tent. I thought it was a bear at first because I could only see the silhouette and the light was weird. And I was like, I'm going to die. And then I realized it was this moose and it was pushing its muzzle up against it. And I'm just sitting there like, apparently my sister was camping with me and she looks over me and I'm just like going, shh, to myself, like, don't make a sound, shh, shh. Like, it was intense. My heart was like in my throat. It was that moment.
I had a similar experience. It bedded down next to our tent.
No.
And it was there for hours. Yeah.
Oh, they are terrifying. Oh, you should have told him.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure it was mating season or something. He was terrifying.
That's why I go camping.
I love camping, but after that experience, I realized how little and insignificant I am. So Man versus Nature, really, it's so real. It's like the worst villain.
So sometimes when you think about Man versus Nature, sometimes who's the villain? Who's the real villain?
Humans.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the humans.
Infringing on habitat.
I mean, really, I was in his territory. What the heck was I thinking?
Well, unintentionally, yes.
It was a cultivated campground, but anyway. All right. So
I'm having man versus nature over here because my senile, old, sweet, lovely cat keeps howling at the door. So I keep muting it, and I'm like, I'm trying to do a panel, and nature doesn't want to do the panel.
I think Melinda too earlier said like, well, what about nature or something that's not like a person? And what makes a good villain there is, plus all the stuff we already mentioned, is like the villain really has to be powerful enough for you to really believe that the good guys might not win or might not make it. And that's true with nature stories or with society stories, where they're up against a force that's so much bigger than they are, that you look at it and you just see this wall of things that you don't know how to deal with as an individual. And that's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about the story, like the villain being the engine of the story, like how big an engine, and when like what came into my head as when you were talking about that, Rebecca, is like the concept of like this. It doesn't have to be a little car engine. It could be this enormous war machine engine. Like there are things that are just ginormous, and we're just little tiny people trying to fight against this enormous engine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to miss all the comments. There are some amazing comments over here going on. A lot of people agreeing with the humans being the villains usually, yes. Math is my arch nemesis. Math is the worst. I will agree with that.
I love
know
math.
Everyone will. I hate math.
Hey,
There's a reason I write.
The world wouldn't function without math. Come on.
That's right.
Yay,
Yeah, I'm
Melinda's
grateful.
with me.
I'm grateful that there are people who love it so that I don't have to.
Same.
No,
I mean-
math is I know all y'all, you math people.
I'm not mad at math. I just don't want it in my kingdom. It's not allowed. It goes to my bookkeeper and my accountant's kingdom. Like
Exactly. See, there's a lot of people that are siding with the math lovers on this chat, and that's totally fine. I am grateful for all of you. Thank you for loving the numbers. I hate them. I have a hate relationship with numbers. Always will. They are villains. So we talked a little bit about villains being a mirror or a foil to the hero. How do you construct your villains around this concept or subvert it? How are you handling that? And then, I have a follow-up question, but we'll see if we get there. So yeah, like a mirror or a foil to the villain or hero of the story. I phrased that better the first time. I'm just gonna quote my head.
No, you're good. It makes sense. I start building my characters usually using the Enneagram, which is like a personality test thing. It's just a brainstorming. I don't really think you can categorize people, but just to kind of get things going. So I figure out like, how is this hero? What is this hero's story? And are they like a type whatever? And then I think about what type the villain could be that really wouldn't work with that or would be the same, which sometimes is even worse. And then I always think back to one of John Truby's tips. If anyone's ever read any John Truby craft books, it's a lot. So he's one of those things where I pick and choose and just pop in and out of his books. But he talks about the rectangle or just the shape of the story and how like each character has to have something going against like each one to every corner. I'm probably not describing this super well, but you want to think about how the hero and the villain conflict with each other, but also have things in common. And then, same with all the other characters in the story. So you kind of want to I like to visually like map that out and figure out what everybody's kind of personalities are, and then just let that morph from there based on what's happened before the story and in the story.
Man, I thought I was detailed about that. Like I have a D&D character sheet for all my people. I'm going to go give them a disc assessment.
I love that.
Get him a Myers-Briggs test or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually know the Myers-Briggs for all my characters too.
I'm not surprised at all, Rebecca.
So when I did my main villain and main protagonist, I did like a side by side chart and had different aspects of their personality, their lifestyle, their interests, their hobbies, their communication styles, and put each one, in the box and just kind of wrote out. And like Alisha was saying, in some cases they're opposites, and then in other cases they're identical. And I think what's really interesting about the commonalities more than the differences is that they have these shared characteristics, but they use them in their life in different ways, which is ultimately what leads them down the path of being the protagonist or being the antagonist. And so like one pop culture example would be like Gladiator. Maximus and Commodus both had very similar access to become great military leaders, to be able to lead Rome. And yet they did vastly different things with that access and with that power, and it created two men that were wildly different. And obviously we're cheering for the one that is more selfless and that is, a servant leader. And that, so it's just, there were so many things they had in common. They grew up together. They loved the same woman. They, all of these things. And yet they're opposites in so many other key ways.
Right.
Yeah. Most of my villains started out as heroes. Immortality is a big trope in my series. That's kind of the crux of like what would happen if people like in our like broken, messed up world actually did achieve immortality. And spoiler alert, it's not good. And this is but the story opens 1,200 years later, and they have become villains. They're still touting themselves as heroes and basically like get demigods at this point. But a lot of my heroes were built out of, okay, what type of people would be able to overcome the thing that these people weren't able to? And that's kind of like that was like the foundation of my cast, I guess. So they're kind of like automatically foils of each other. But a lot of them seem similar to how these villains used to be. And that creates some tension.
Any other thoughts? I do have a question Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my villains don't start out as villains. It's the circumstances in their lives that drive them one way or another, just how they reacted to the things. I kind of like what Rebecca was talking about I took the characters and said, okay, what are the aspects of these two different characters, the hero and the villain? And where are they similar? Why are they similar? Where are they different? And why are they different? And a lot of it came down to the circumstances in their lives and what happens and how do they deal with those? Because they had similar circumstances, and it's how did they deal with it? And how was their upbringing and just the circumstances of their lives driving them one way or another.
Yeah, that feels so organic and natural instead of being sort of a forced, like we have a natural, an inborn origin story or what have you. Sorry, I am trying to find that question again.
Was it about the multiple villains in the book?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just actually typing an
villains?
answer to that. I haven't answered that. So I think individual motivations, like you're talking about how do you avoid the like, oh, it's another henchman that you run into in the next room of the video game, essentially. They have to have their own personalities and their own individual motivations in order to like they may have a similar, like a united goal. But I think their personalities and if you have an actual backstory for them, that makes a huge difference. And if you're talking about this, you're probably talking about a multicast, group of people, heroes and villains. So like if they have different interactions with different people on your like hero cast, I think that can give it a lot of variety.
We have, like Robert and I have multiple villains in our stories, but they're different. Their motivations are different. Their goals are different. Same thing with different heroes in our storyline. They're not. They don't have the same goal. They have different goals, but yet, they're either a villain or they're a hero.
Yeah. One thought I had with like if the villains don't interconnect with the heroes because it's like a one-off villain and you're never going to see them again, my thought process on that is that you can still find ways of having similarities or differences that conflict. Like they don't have to be an exact mirror, but you can still have one aspect that is in conflict or that is similar that somebody can that's going to cause that friction. As long as there's that friction, I think you're okay, even if it's a one-off and you're never going to see them again and you're moving on to a different world, a different space, a different whatever. I think there's always a way to add subtle nuances that allow for that mirroring or that conflict. Oh. Do you feel that a villain, well, we really kind of talked about this. I kind of had a feeling that some of my questions would overlap already organically. We'd sort of talk about it. Does anybody want to elaborate a little bit more on personal stakes between that conflict and the villain? What makes it so that they enhance each other? Any other thoughts on that idea of that personal stakes kind of a thing? Or do you think that is more compelling than, say, the environmental or like just very differentiated goals? I can word.
Well, okay. I don't know if this totally answers your question completely, but when I'm thinking about all of that and figuring all of that out, different situations are horrible to different people, right? Like, obviously, like some people are afraid of water, so they don't like the ocean. Like, there's simple things like that, but there's also like personality driven situations that are like a horror show to some people and just fine with others. So I think a lot of that once again comes off of that personality and past experience and all of that on how you're going to figure that out. So like when I'm doing the Enneagram stuff, I actually will watch videos on YouTube. There's a guy that does stuff with couples. Now, I write a lot of romance, which is not, a focus of this panel. And when you're writing a romance, you might have a fantasy with a romance subplot, right? So you still have the villain and the hero, but then you've got the couple. But a lot of times in romance, they're really their own, like they're antagonists, really, of their own thing. So, but regardless, it's a relationship, whether one wants it or not, depending on the story. So watching like videos about how an Enneagram 4 interacts with an Enneagram 8 or whatever like that, like what situations make them hugely uncomfortable. Like I'm an 8 and to be vulnerable is like the worst thing for me. So like I don't like to share my emotions. I'm a mean, cold bitch. Anyway, but not really. I'm not. I'm healthy. But like there are elements of like a 4 that like really value authenticity. I have a friend that's a 4. So if someone is being very performative, that is just going to eat them up. So I feel like a lot of that like mirroring or how they're going to handle stuff and how they're going to interact really just comes out of how they're made, what they've experienced and how they react to what they've experienced. But yeah, if that makes any sense.
It totally does. Often in these, like, usually in the stories, like there's like a big goal, like the cast of heroes or even just the one want one thing to happen. They want an outcome and there's obstacles. But even then, usually a good story there's personal stakes with the hero, or if it's a multicast, they each have their personal stakes on top of the big goal and their personal villain, whether that's another person or their own like dysfunction or nature or something. They usually, like, I feel like a good story is going to have personal stakes and a personal villain for each of those main cast characters. That is something more personal even than the big plot.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that take on it. I think it's very important to make a story personal. I know it doesn't have to be the case, but for me, that's definitely my preference is those personal stakes, that personal growth, the personal or the it can be the evolution or the devolution of a character as long as it's personal. Any other thoughts on that? All right. So this is a fun one for me. We've got about 10 more minutes until the end of the panel, and so I think we're going to be okay to tackle this. When crafting a villain, what ingredients do you always personally bring to make them memorable? Can you, like if you can list just like two or three, if you can think of them, like specific things that you feel like you do in general to craft your specific villain for your story. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, for me, they need to probably be intelligent because if they're not intelligent, unless you're writing humor, them not being intelligent is going to be hard to pull off them being scary, you know?
Yeah.
Because honestly, if someone's super intelligent, even if they have no like physical prowess or a lot of resources, I'm going to keep my eye on them, you know? Cunning is real. So
Yeah.
for me, that is a huge part of it. I usually like to make them pretty darn smart. And then obviously passion. Passion is the other thing. Those two things I think for me are key because if they don't have the passion to keep going, then your hero's not going to have need to fight as hard. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of goes hand in hand as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like
I'm
those
gonna,
two ingredients a lot.
I'm gonna throw out my D&D character sheet thing again because I think that's so helpful. Even
Yeah.
if you're not like if you don't play D&D, that's fine. Just get the character sheet, print it off, it's free. Fill it out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love those character sheets because for one thing, they help my brain keep things straight. Any other ingredients that people like? One of my favorites to use is charisma. I love like are they like to I rank their charisma level. Are they very charismatic? Are they not? Like that is a very important thing for me and my villains. I love a charismatic villain, so I have to decide. Like I actually have to steer really carefully away from making all of my villains charismatic because that's like my default setting for villains. So I'm always just like on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you?
Definitely a 10.
Yes,
I think
always.
one key thing that's been part of all of my villains so far is that they very much have a personal belief that they are right, and their actions are very justified based on their worldview. And even if that conviction changes over time, you know, like Dan was saying, a lot of times my villains don't start as villains, but they have this, you know, just motivation, like be it fear of not being accepted or not being good enough or desire for love or whatever, and it needles them constantly in this direction to where they continually justify their beliefs and justify their actions as those actions become more and more extreme and they become something that probably could have been preventable. And I think, so that's come through all of my villains so far. And then another piece, I think, is just giving them those moments throughout the story where you can see their humanity. And I think that is really what makes a great villain is when you see that things could have been different if they had chosen a different path. If they had dealt with their problem in a slightly different way, they may not have ended up where they are. And that makes them more tragic, which is my favorite thing.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta love a tragic villain, especially as they're like devolving into it. It breaks my heart, but I love it. Any other thoughts on that? Perfect. So let's see. We already talked about environment. So oh, and we kind of touched on this one, but it's kind of funny. I'm gonna bring this back. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I'm bringing this topic back up, but if heroes like to save the cat, what's the villain equivalent of that? And I literally in my paper, I wrote like kick the puppy. I wrote kick the puppy. I didn't write hurt the, but like exactly kill the dog. So,
It's also
how
got a
do
cat
you,
like holding the rope, and there's a dog, and the cat's like gonna let go.
I am buying that
It's really
immediately
funny.
upon the end of
It's really funny.
It's really funny.
Upon the end of it's really good. It's funny. It uses John Wick as like a a case study, I guess. It's a really good book. I do recommend the Save the Cat books too.
Yes.
But this was a really refreshing and very entertaining.
Yeah, I love that because it goes right. Like, I don't know how that we couldn't have planned this, but like, sorry guys, it's a villain panel. We're talking about dogs and carting them.
It is a good
So-
analogy. Go ahead, Kirsten.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of breaking rules to no one's surprise. But you have to know you have to know why the rule exists. You have to know how to follow it and why and when it's right to like how and when it's right to break it, you know? Like so like the Save the Cat thing is very popular, but one of the reasons why John Wick is so popular is because they did the exact opposite.
Yes.
He didn't have any of those like humanizing moments. He just like watched his dog get, you know, and then went after and then it became like this revenge quest. And it is so popular because it was also kind of refreshing, you know, from that formula. Like the formula is good, but also when a formula is super established, breaking it well is really, really good.
Yeah,
They
like
say,
that really is his save the cat because he cares
Yeah.
about the dog.
It's a
So
different
it's like they took it and
it's a
flipped
different
it, yeah.
application. Yep, exactly,
Right.
exactly. But
It's
there
very
is
clever.
yeah, so since we're on the topic though specifically of villains, there's a moment in my first book, Remnant, where one of the characters, she's a spy and she's supposed to be doing some things and she runs into a little situation with a guy who's just like a nasty dude and she has to figure out how to deal with him without giving herself away. And then one of the villains ends up just coming in and taking him out. And this guy was like, he was despicable. And this villain, who she's like, these are the worst, he's like, hey, if you run into people like that, just throw them in a ditch. She's like, oh. But she has like this crisis of conscience where she's like, this is a human person who has morals. And I might have to like put him in a ditch. So she has this moment where she has to recognize that the villains she's up against are very much humans.
Yeah.
Not this like other thing. They're not like less than. They're just really different from, you know, they have different morals and things than her, but she has that moment where she has to recognize just because they are wrecking things doesn't mean they're less human than me.
Yeah.
So
I always think about how they treat their employees, so to speak, their minions. Because,
Yeah.
you know, one of those trope kind of things, I can't remember. Oh, it's the dog bites back. So, like, if you've got a villain and they have, like, you know, somebody that's working for them or whatever, and they don't treat them well, they're just, you know, constantly not worrying about their needs at all in a variety of ways. And then the hero comes along and actually shows that they're different. They may not even interact with that person, but something about something the hero does affects the minion, the employee, whatever. And that, you know, since the villain has kicked that dog so many times, that dog actually switches sides for a minute. So I like that interaction when I see that between the villain and the hero and another character that's kind of working on the side.
Right. We're kind of going down there on time, so we're gonna have to kind of wrap it up here now. Sadly, because I love this and I could talk about this like all day. But I did want to give each of you a chance to, you know, let people know where to find you online and that sort of thing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your thoughts about villains, about how to craft them and what not to do, about why we love them, about what they can look like, all that. I appreciate your thoughts so much. And if anybody has missed this full panel, we will be putting it on our YouTube. We have recorded it and we're going to be uploading it to our YouTube channel in the coming days and weeks. I'm not sure how quickly, but so let's just go through. We'll go Alisha, and then Dan, and then Kirsten, and then Rebecca. Tell us where we can find you online to find you in your books.
I have a website that's involves my crazy last name, so good luck. It's aliciaklapheke.com. So you can find all my stuff there. I'm also on Instagram at Alisha Klapheke. So my stuff's there. I do a lot of events, so I always post when those are happening. If you want to come say hi, I absolutely love meeting people in real life. Thank you so much for having me.
Who's next?
Dan?
Am I? Oh,
Oh, am I next?
yep.
You're next.
Sorry.
You're good.
I lost track of the sequence. So, Robert and I, you can find us at Legends of Calda, KALDA.com. That's our website. Thanks.
Perfect. Kirsten?
You can find me at krsolberg.com or palomarsaga.com. Put it in the chat. Palomar is Palimar. And you can join my cult. I mean, my email newsletter. Totally not a cult. I'm pretty active on like TikTok and Instagram too, but email list is the best. So
Perfect. Rebecca?
And I threw my website in the chat as well, rmkrogman.com. I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also join my newsletter as well. So it's rmkrogman.com/links, and you can get on there and get a free story.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm MH Woodscourt. You can find me at mhwoodscourt.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram mostly under MH Woodscourt author with dots in between all of that stuff. It's really obnoxious. Anyway, thank you all again for being here. I've appreciated it. It's been so much fun. And thanks for all the people who want to avenge my dog. We'll talk about it later.